For the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag
the United States of
United
America,
States of America,
to the republic,
stands one nation under God,
indivisible.
liberty and justice for all.
That works much better in person, folks.
Yeah, that was rough.
All right, just for the usual preamble, tonight's Ways and Means meeting is being held remotely pursuant to the Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general laws, section 30A, section 20, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town of Burlington Ways and Means is being conducted via remote participation. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to or view this meeting while in progress may do so by tuning into the BCAT government channel, the BCAT government meetings Facebook page, live feed, or over the phone with 408-418-9388, meeting number 713-851-433. Also, a reminder to the committee, all votes are required to be done by roll call. So we'll do that again this week. I put together an agenda. Whoops. That's what I wanted to do. So are there any sort of modifications to that we need to take into account? Is the order okay? All right, in the absence of anything to the contrary, let's start at the top. Town Hall 1, I think that's David, Frank. We've got a list of warrant articles, some of which we've talked about and some of which we haven't, but we need to vote all of them.
Yeah. Go ahead, David.
Roger, before we get going too far,
Sure, Mike.
I don't know how long the Town Hall 1 discussions are going to be, but if we think some of those might be long, if we could sneak in the police thing, they only have one small one at some point early on.
I think that's fine with me. David, Frank, you okay to hold off a minute?
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
So go ahead, take it away, Mike.
Thank you. I sent you an email, Roger, with the text. If you care to share that, or otherwise we can just talk through it.
Well, why don't you start? It's going to take me a minute to find it because I'm not sure I put it in the right place.
All right, I'll pull up my copy. So, one sec. So this is Article 21, Police Patrolmen's Association contract. Subcommittee, Bill and I met with police chief and assistant chief last week, talked about this and supported it 2-0. This is a 2-year agreement with the Police Patrolmen's Association. I'm looking at the text now. I don't know if you guys have this in your books or not, but basically there's a wage adjustment increase of 2.25% in the first year, and then in year 2, 1.75%. And there's also some adjustments, rounding adjustments and increases between steps. So this was all part of a negotiated contract. There are some stipend increases, certain stipends were increased, and a small, I think $1 an hour pay rate increase for details. There were some non-compensation changes as well. Vacation leave, sick leave, bereavement leave, some clothing equipment replacement, changes to the grievance process. And there was also a light duty policy implemented with this contract. Trying to remember what that is. I think Chief will be able to correct me, but it's something to do with people maybe coming back from injury, being able to do light duty before they get back into their regular position so that they can come back earlier. I think that was what that was. The total amount here is $147,688 to be transferred from negotiated settlements.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Chief, do you have anything to add?
No, I thought Mike did a good job. The light duty policy he was referring to was something that we've been pursuing pretty much since I got here. And what it does is gives us the ability, if someone's injured on duty and they're able to come back, let's say they hurt a knee or whatever, they can do desk work or work in the evidence room or things of that nature. So it'll get people back to work sooner. And I frankly think that was a big get for management in this negotiations.
All right. Any questions of the committee?
Question, please.
Hi, John. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Mike, I'm not sure if I heard the amount right. The amount in the warrant is 147,688. Is that the amount?
I believe that's the amount. Let me just double check here. 147,688.
Okay, great. I wasn't sure I heard that. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
This is a 2-year contract. Don't we normally do 3 to help get it back in line with other contracts? Don't we normally do 3-year contracts?
Roger, this is John. I can take that if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Doug. Yep. So that's the exact reason. You may remember at the last year at May town meeting, we did a 1-year deal with Patrol. And the reason being was it had been quite some time since they had a successor agreement in place at the expiration of an agreement. So we did a 1-year deal and sort of got right back at it to sort of finish off the 3-year deal. And what we're really trying to do is keep the expiration of dates of the contracts around the same time frame.
Okay.
All right. Other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
Doug?
Yeah.
All right. Running down the roll call vote here. Brad Bond?
Yes.
Diane Creedon?
Yes.
Hi, Diane. Doug Davidson?
Hi.
Yes.
David Tate?
Yes.
Frank Monaco?
Yes.
Guy Shree?
Yes.
John Eiler?
Yes.
Mike Hardy?
Yes.
Bill Gallagher?
Yes.
Rob Neufeld?
Yes.
Sonia Rollins said she wouldn't be able to come, and I don't see her. Steve Moran?
Yes.
Susan Harrigan?
Yes.
And I don't see Tom. So I think that's 12-0-0. Count right? All right. I think, Mike, that's all you had today,
That's it. Thank you for letting us squeeze that in.
right? Thanks, Chief. And
Thank you very much.
yep. All right.
Roger, did we vote the vests?
We have not yet voted the vests. We have already discussed them. We did talk about them a couple of weeks ago. I don't know whether it needs more discussion.
Well, I would move the vests while the chief is here, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the amount that I have for the vests, sorry, the amount for the vests, not the amount I have, is $89,580. And I don't remember, there wasn't too much spirited discussion last time. Is there anything further?
So this is Frank Rogers. So what we identified is this would come out of free cash. There is a likely grant that would reimburse some amount of this, and that reimbursement would then just flow into the general fund if and when it comes in.
Right. Great. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. Another roll call. Brad Bond,
Yes.
Diane Creedon,
Yes.
Doug Davison,
Yes.
Nate,
Yes.
Frank Monaco,
Yes,
Gaia,
Yes.
Mike Hardy,
Yes.
Phil Gallagher,
Yes.
Rob Newfeld,
Yes.
Sonia, Steve Moran,
Yes.
Susan Harrigan,
Yes.
and we don't have Tom. So that's another 12-0-0.
I think you skipped me, but I'm a yes.
Right, good point, John.
it's still 12-0-0.
Yeah. I feel so valued.
I should make assumptions about how anybody's going to vote. That's not part of the program. All right. I guess any other observations that we need the police subcommittee and public safety subcommittee for? No. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Back to you, David.
All right, so I may have to tag team with Frank here. I'm juggling the schedule here. So I think the first up is the Article 5 to fund the revolving accounts. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I believe this is one that has been discussed previously.
Yeah, we did, David. You were out for that meeting. The thumbnail on this is that it's not every revolving account, but there's a long list that the administration supports here. They need to be reapproved every year just for spending limits. No changes whatsoever. The only discussion we had was that the Beeline revolving account will endure for one more season. And as you all know from the discussion on the Beeline, some of that money is actually tagged as an offset on the operating budget. So there really are no changes here. And it's just spending limits. There's no appropriation.
Subcommittee had voted 2-0 in favor of it. I was here for that meeting. But yeah, I remember.
All right. Any other questions on that one or not? I have a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Right, motion. One article number 5, approving the revolving fund account limits. Let's do another roll call. Brad Bond,
Yes.
Yes.
Doug Davison,
Yes. Yes.
Frank Monaco,
Yes,
Sheree,
Yes.
John Eiler,
Yes.
Mike Hardy. All right, Mike, I missed you.
It's on mute.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Phil Gallagher,
Yes.
Rob Newfeld,
Yes.
Steve Moran,
Yes.
Susan Harrigan.
Yes.
Thank you. 12-0-0. All right, what's next, David?
Next up, it looks like it's the PEG Cable Access Enterprise Fund, the transfer. Again, I know we've discussed this already at that same meeting. It's basically the way the accounts have been set up now. We have to formally do a transfer from the monies that are received from the cable companies for our public television and transfer it into the BCAT account. So subcommittee had voted 2-0 in favor.
All right, any other questions on that one? Can I have a motion?
Motion to
So
approve.
second.
Thank you. Another roll call. Brad Bond,
Well, I am on the board over at BCAT. I don't receive any compensation for serving on the board. I feel I am allowed to vote on this, and I will vote in support.
thank you for the note and the vote. Tanya,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Yaya,
Yes.
Yes.
thank you, Mike,
Yes.
Phil,
I am on the board as well. Do I receive any compensation? I vote yes.
thank you, Rob,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
thank you, Susan.
Yes.
All right, 1200. David, next up.
The next one, it looks like, is the A and P, the fund, Article 19, fund the A and P plan. Amount of this is 102,572, and the source of funding will be from the negotiated settlement account. This is our non-union employees, basically our chief executives and administrators in the town that are not part of the union. It represents about 41, or it does represent 41 people in town. Little summary, but this represents a 1.75% increase. It also adds the step that we had done for the other bargaining units over the past year. So this now brings up that added step. It goes half into effect this year, half next year, which again ultimately makes this this rate roughly 2.5% as an overall. Again, the amount is 102,572. Frank and I did have a lot of discussion on this, given the circumstances and what we're under right now, and the whole idea in trying to preserve cash and what have you. And where this is a non-union issue, we had discussions of whether or not we should delay, either delay or possibly compensate next year to another extent, given what is going on. So overall, we ended the conversation both agreeing to support this. Raises have been appropriated or have been recommended for appropriation in the other bargaining units, the other union units, and we felt it also important to keep our most critical people and our executives on the same par as they are. So Frank and I both agreed to support it. I'll ask if Frank wants to also mention anything through you, Mr. Chairman.
Frank? Muted, Frank.
Oh, I'm sorry, I had it in reverse. It's probably obvious to the committee that this is an oddball year in terms of unknowns ahead of us for the next at least 6 months and probably 18. But in the end, because we have no way to really deal with future offsets that doesn't create even more inequities, it just didn't make sense at basically a COLA of 175 to do anything but let this go the way it was requested. One thing I will add is that the step that David's referring to, there's been an ongoing need to restructure the A&P plan because it's out of date in a lot of ways, and it doesn't reflect when we go to the street to hire into the professional ranks. We always have problems with getting, the title to match the salary to the job that we want, plus Burlington has grown. That restructuring has not taken place, but they did add a step at the top to help make this thing work a little better. I would expect sometime in the next 12 to 24 months, we will see an overhaul of the A&P plan in terms of the grid, the titles, the comps that go with it, and to balance it out with the street. But it's not ready at this time.
Thanks, Frank. Questions, anyone?
Motion to approve.
All right, thank you.
Seconded.
All right. Roll call for the A&P compensation plan, $102,000, $572. Brad,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Sorry, Frank, you're muted, I think.
Yes.
Thank you. Gaia,
Yes.
John Eiler,
Yes.
Mike,
Yep.
Bill,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
Thank you. 12-0-0.
Next up is Article 20, which is funding the part-time compensation plan. This is primarily for our seasonal employees and part-timers. Part-timers are 19 hours or less. And it's a 2% increase for our seasonal employees, a 2.5% for the full-time or for the part-timers that work. Again, in this area, you've got to make sure we're staying above although we're not subject to it, we got to stay above the minimum wage capacity here. So the total amount is $4,464. It's coming out of the negotiated settlements account, and the subcommittee voted 2-0.
All right. Questions, anyone? Oh, actually, do you know how many part-time employees this covers? I didn't realize the hours are flexible, variable, so maybe head count's not an interesting number.
So big one.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
No, I was going to say the big one is the summer help through the rec department. So, and it's hard to say how that's going to pan out, but the stream cleaners it's basically the summer help. Frank, I don't know. Do we have a number?
I don't think we do because we don't actually know how much the rec department is going to use. If you go by prior years, it's a fairly large number. I don't think you actually gave it to us, John or Paul.
Hi, this is John. So that can vary quite a bit with the seasonal help, and with the part-timers, it's less than a dozen people. And I'm not sure the dollar amount, but the dollar amount was $4,464 in total.
Yeah, okay. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's
I just
small
didn't have
money,
it.
but. All right. Anything further? Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you. And anyone was a second?
Second.
Thanks. A roll call for $4,464. Brad,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Yaya,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
Thank you. 12-0-0. Hopefully, we're spending more time discussing than we are voting, but on to the next.
So this one, I believe, is the special counsel, the appellate tax board, which again we've spoken about. Is Jim Doherty on the line at all?
I
I don't see him on the.
don't believe so.
Okay. We again had sent around kind of an update from him, and I know that the board had some questions. So when we discussed it the first time, so ultimately, this is the way I look at it. It's a matter of putting up this money. It was a judgment that we lost in appellate court, which totaled about $250,000. But Macy's is also going to have 3 additional years that this is going to cover. So ultimately, it's taking money out of the tax over the overlay account to support our decision to fight this judgment. So it involves some hours of the appellate work for the years we've lost, but also quite specifically to support the 3 years that are still going to be contesting. Jim is very adamant that even though we lost in court, that we had a very good stance. And again, weighing the pros and cons of spending money versus how much you're saving. This hasn't happened to us very much. Jim has done an outstanding job in supporting values and having that upheld in court. This is definitely a loss, but I also think you got to look at it from the standpoint of how other property owners are looking at this and how firm Burlington will go to support and stand by what their judgment is. So I look at it as money well spent. I know we did have a subcommittee vote at 2-0. Frank, again, I'll piggyback on you. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, what I'd like to do, Phil was the one that raised the question of, cost versus potential return. There's additional documentation that's come out, Phil, which I hope you've been able to finally get.
Frank, I'm satisfied to this extent. I think it's $250,000 per year in the 3-year judgment. So, I mean, I think it's money well spent if we can reduce the damage for those 3 years, but not only that, establish more firmly their value going forward. So I'm wholeheartedly in favor of this.
Okay, so to the rest of the board, the only additional thing that through enlightenment to me and listening and thinking about this more, there's the potential here that this particular party is engaging in activities that are a little bit more complex and maybe not fully disclosed to us. And I think that what Jim is intending to do is to do a better job on defending our position through discovery and actions that may actually be planning and may take relative to the property and to reestablish the fair value. So I think we actually don't know where this can end up, and I think that the potential for unnecessary damage is actually greater than just recovering money. So I would go ahead with this, and we can always stop. Remember, you can I believe you can withdraw an appeal at any point, and the the legal costs. So I would support it.
All right. Anyone with questions? If not, can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, David and Steve. Roll call vote here.
Roger, just sorry to interrupt you. So, Paul, will you just confirm? So, what you have to do is release the money from the overlay account to fund this, correct?
That's correct. That's an action that the Board of Assessors have to take to release those funds. And Jim has indicated that they'll be doing that at their next meeting.
On June 3rd. So
Yes.
in the event, which is very unlikely that the board doesn't release the funds, this would be an unfunded article, and Jim will have to deal with it on the floor. But we're anticipating the money to come from the overlay account, which has sufficient funds. It's a question of the board releasing it. Thank you.
Just a quick question, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
How would the Jim address this on the town floor if the Board of Assessors doesn't release the money?
I would just say respectfully that I know Jim works very closely with his board, and I don't believe that he would pursue this path without his board support.
Oh, understood. Thanks.
Mhm.
Okay. Roll call vote for $150,000 transferred from the overlay account to support special council appellate tax board. Brad?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Yaya?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Thank you. 12-0-0.
Article 25 is Melissa on the
She is.
line?
Yep.
Great. So again, this is to fund an economic development strategy plan. I think it's going to be important for us to listen to Melissa on this one. I think it's her introduction to, but I think she'd do a better job in developing it. But ultimately, it's the purpose is to fund a plan or a strategy from outsiders, from consultants that look at opportunities and where we're at. And nowadays, maybe more important than ever to develop a strategy and a plan for how we go about developing future plans. So, Frank, I'm going to ask you if you would like to mention anything. If not, I'd like to have Melissa present this to committee just for an introduction.
I don't know if it's better. I think it might be better for Melissa to just present her pitch, which she did for us earlier today, and depending on how I think the committee might respond to that, I may add some words right after that.
Sounds good. Melissa?
Okay, well, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Frank. Like Frank mentioned, I was able to speak to them this morning. Can you hear me okay? Can everyone thumbs up? Okay. So this request for Article 25 is to request funding for an economic development strategic plan. And the idea behind this is to kind of create our kind of guiding framework as we go forward in terms of what our economic development strategies, goals, and really the objectives that we lay out as a community. So I think with regard to this position as it was created, my understanding was that, we want to kind of maintain, we have, 51% of our tax revenue comes from commercial. We need to kind of maintain and strengthen that to continue to move forward at least the same level, if not grow. So in order to do that, I think the idea behind this is to move beyond just the comprehensive plan and get into some really kind of more policy, program, and incentive kind of choices that the town has to make together. And to do that, the idea would be, from my experience, has been to bring in more of an outside consultant, and they kind of review what we've done as the town to date. That would also be, the comprehensive plan. Take into stakeholder input, and then look at the data, because we want to really take in kind of emerging trends, facts of like investment, where investment's happening, so we can really form a strategy based on the data that's on the ground. I came into this position in January, and for the first month and a half, I did stakeholder interviews, and with that, I think three things that really emerged were, concerns about the future around the mall, how we can address and position the mall for success going forward. The second thing was really how we can invest and support our smaller neighborhood serving businesses in the town center. And then also a focus on life science. How can we grow and be a leader in life science? So those were kind of the three themes that came up. So what we would do with the plan is have, there's a few people out there that I've worked with in the past, but there's the teams that have access to subscription data and have an orienting framework that can kind of delve in and lay out more of a roadmap for us, so that we can bring in our elected bodies, in particular Board of Selectmen, as well as the Planning Board. And so we can have a kind of, they're both really invested in a plan together, because a lot of the choices, whether they're infrastructure investments or land use policy choices going forward, kind of need to be on the same page. And the strategy helps to do that. The strategy plan helps to do that. So I think that's kind of the general background. I believe John said that you had kind of the FAQ that I put together, kind of the general questions. I don't know if anyone was able to take a look at that. That had a few samples of the strategy plans that I've seen that were pretty effective. Frank, that's kind of the general overview. I mean, I think when we talked this morning, we talked about also, the strategy helps us, as much as I understand it's a difficult time coming through kind of the pandemic. I think one thing that this would enable us to is really kind of positioning ourselves into an offensive position to move forward. As things are challenging, we recognize that, but if we can do certain interventions, whether it's policy programs or starting to leverage some state funding through state infrastructure programs, we can position ourselves to be a stronger and ready to kind of uplift ourselves as recovery, happens going forward.
So if I may, Roger,
Yeah, Frank, go ahead.
very briefly, the two things that I'd cap with on this is, first of all, I think what's going on in the economy is actually just being accelerated by the economic distress that's been caused by essentially unemployment and businesses start operating for 3 to 6 months. So it's a huge accelerator. But I think that this is it's an opportunity for us to get better focused. This isn't a master plan kind of thing. This is an economic development assessment of where we really can leverage what's going on in the economy. We know the ball is changing, and it's probably going to be pretty dramatic. I think the downtown area may very well see some pretty significant forces on it, mostly because small businesses are going to go through who knows what. So I think the timing is right. I think the important part of bringing some outside help in for Melissa is there are two things that she said that I think are important to keep in mind. One is that we get an outside objective opinion from someone that has real expertise in this area, in addition to Melissa and just us internally. So we get a good sounding board, and we'll get some help with data collection. The idea is to drive this over maybe a 6-month period to a first cut at a report that has focus and starts to make recommendations on the direction that we might need to take for investments, for zoning, for collecting potential people to invest in us, the kinds of businesses we would like to come in that may not necessarily be on the docket. So I think we should give this a whirl. It's not a lot of money, a relatively short period of time that would start to get a sense of where is this going. And that's why I supported it.
Mr. Chairman?
Thanks, Frank. Phil?
Yes, I'm not crazy about this. You would think that developers would bring in their highest value proposals when they're coming in. However, that being said, we did bring on Melissa for the purposes of having a professional take a look at these things, and I think we need to give her the tools to do that. And secondly, my premise that you would think the developer would bring in the best plan has been proven fallacious by the latest effort by the mall, which has been brutally bad in this economic environment. So I would be in favor of this, and let's see if we can, do a little bit better analysis of what the plans are coming before us. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Other questions, comments? If not, can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call. $5,000 to support the development of economic development agency. Brad?
Yes.
Thank you. Diane?
I agree with Phil. Yes, we need to give her the tools. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Gaia?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
I missed it, John. You must have said
Mike?
yes.
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
12-0-0. I'm jumping the gun again. Sorry. All right. What's next?
Thanks to the committee.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Melissa, for coming and explaining the plan.
Yes, and I'm happy. I give updates to our our economic development liaisons and make sure you guys get on those as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks.
Sounds good. All right. So let's see. I think the next up on the list was Article 16, the technology and cybersecurity contracts.
Yes, Roger. This is Brad. I did verify the minutes to refresh my memory. We did vote on that 2 weeks ago with a vote of 11-0-0.
Thank you for my correct update, giving me a chance to update my records. Thanks. And it was only an approval for the 5-year contract, there was no separate money in that, right?
Exactly.
Right. Okay, we already covered 7.3, the ballistic vests. Next up, the administrative 7-5, the administrative vehicle for the fire department.
You want me to, actually, can you hear me, Roger?
Yeah, Mike.
So I wasn't sure if we covered this yet, but maybe we didn't. On our initial discussion on this, Tom Killalay had raised a question about whether we would consider a hybrid vehicle. And I did get some feedback from Fire Chief Patterson. He says, I'll just read the email. He says, Mike, in response to Ways and Means member Killalay's question, the 2020 hybrid all-wheel drive package was listed for $30,845.85. The cost of the vehicle that I submitted was $29,210.85. The hybrid is approximately $1,600 more. The hybrid vehicle is not the plug-in type, which I had a concern with. Typically, when command cars respond to scenes or inspections, we shut the vehicles off. I have no strong opinion on this matter one way or the other. So that's an additional data point on the question of a hybrid vehicle. It looks like we could get one that would be about $1,600 more than the original proposed vehicle.
All right, I guess, thanks for that updated information. I mean, personally, I think I'd rather see the whole town decide that they're okay with getting hybrids. People who have to maintain them, et cetera, before and I don't think we're in a position at the moment to change the funding, but.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Paul Segarino whether we had any kind of strategy at the town level on hybrids.
Thank you, Mike. It's Paul. I just want to say that we don't necessarily have a coordinated strategy. I know that when we first looked into them several years ago, they ended up being a much more expensive option. The repairs and the life of the battery and all those good things. But I do think the product is getting better. I don't necessarily think that they'll ever be suitable for public safety type vehicles, but certainly something that we will consider moving forward as we, move on the general government fleet, the non-public safety fleet, the town hall vehicles, and the other vehicles that people use, the inspectors and whatnot. I do think that we will give them strong consideration. As the committee knows, we have a electric vehicle charging station now in back of town hall. We're just waiting for an electric meter on. So we have taken some steps towards it, and I do think it will be part of the discussion going forward. I just personally, I'm not sure if we'll see a time where we'll want our public safety vehicles and, I think there's a concern about when we turn the key, we want it to start. So, and again, I think that electric vehicles have come a long way since a couple years ago. And I'm just not sure if we'll see it for public safety.
Paul, are they even on the public safety bid list? The list, you buy off of a list, don't you? The state list?
Yes, and maybe Whitney can chime in on that. She's very familiar with the different lists. Whit, do they have vehicles on the state bid list for?
Yes, Paul, they do have some hybrid or electric choices on state bid list. The choices at this point are a little bit more limited than the non-hybrid options, but there is potential for that on the state contract list and the other cooperative lists.
Thank you, Whitney.
Question, please.
Yes, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, actually more of a suggestion, I guess. I would suggest that, when we do come up with this policy for hybrids, this particular case, it sounds like it's about 5% more expensive, at least on the purchase price. And, presumably there's some payback in terms of better mileage that would offset that over time. I guess I would suggest that the policy have explicit numbers in it in terms of, we're willing to pay this much more if whatever for a hybrid, and we're offsetting it by however much we plan to offset. So it's in other words, I'd like to see hard numbers in a policy as opposed to a feeling that we would like to do them without any clear numbers. Thank you.
Roger, this is Frank.
Yeah, Frank.
A different angle on this. To the extent that the state or the federal government is encouraging green initiatives, and in particular carbon footprint initiatives, obviously the removal of gasoline from fleets is a step in the right direction. So I think it's fairly complicated for us to figure out probably when, as opposed to if, we want to have a green policy with regards to vehicles. But I think eventually we do. And it may even cost more money to buy the vehicle, and possibly a payback time that's so long that they don't save much money. But the point is, you can get being green, and there may be real incentives to do that. So we should keep our eyes open on this. I don't think it's just going to be the cost of operating a vehicle. In fact, I think it's much more than that. And we need to head down this path. But the administration is going to have to do some work, I think, on putting together a green program that includes transportation. And we don't have that, so I wouldn't just dive into this willy-nilly. I mean, we need a program.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Phil.
I love the sentiment and all this green stuff and whatever you have. The disposal of these batteries, doesn't indicate to me that there's any greener virtue in using these things than there are using a gasoline-powered vehicle, and particularly at the moment when the country is awash in gasoline.
Yep. I think for the policy end of things, I think this is something we ought to take up at the beginning of the budget cycle, not at the end. It's sort of it's too late to change the path now, so we need to set something up earlier if we want to go down this path. Anything further on this administrative vehicle for the fire department for $32,000?
Motion to approve as is. Sorry, I'll let Rob go.
Thank you. I actually get to talk. There is state grants for electric vehicles for fleets and for towns, and so that's something that we should look into when we go through the next cycle. Obviously, I can't find out about it now, but there are extensive grants, so it might be cheaper to buy a hybrid. So.
Good point.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob.
Welcome.
I'll make the motion to approve as is.
All right.
Second.
Steve? All right. Roll call. Brad Bond.
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Yaya,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Phil. Sorry, I missed that, Phil.
Yes.
Thank you. Rob,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
Thank you. 12-0-0. Okay, on to the next. The will of Marshall Simons. It's usually fairly uncontroversial. Since it's accepting money. Do I have any other background on it that's interesting to talk about?
No, I think this is the first reading. It takes 2 readings, I think, to get the money, but this is a no-brainer. I move to approve.
All right, thank you, Phil. Second, anyone?
Second.
This is the roll call vote to accept the will of Marshall Simons in the amount of $67,319. Brad,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Yaya.
Yes.
I think I missed that, Yaya.
Yes.
Thank you. John,
Yes.
Phil, or Mike,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
Thank you. 12-0-0. And community custodial. Susan, did you have something to add to outline on this?
Yes, we did. When we were looking at the community custodial list of groups that benefit from this, we noticed that the citations and Mother to Mother hadn't used their hours in a few years. I don't know exactly how many, but Bob Kuhn is on the line here. Although the school committee hasn't necessarily made the official vote or whatever on this, they would like to take the hours from citations and Mother to Mother and put them onto Burlington Youth Basketball, who way exceeds their hours every year. So although they don't, the amount isn't going to change, they would like to just make some adjustments in the organizations and hours to net down to the exact same number of the $47,464.45. And I don't even know if we need to specify that, but I did see in the warrant that they do list each of the organizations, so I'm not sure actually procedurally how to address that.
Other questions or comments?
Roger, this is Frank. I could be wrong here, and I don't have all the paper in front of me, but we vote a sum of money, and we're not actually saying these dollars go here or these dollars go there. We're saying you've got this many dollars to go to these organizations. I think the distribution of it isn't something that we're actually voting on here, is it?
So as written in the warrant, it says the sum of to be expended under the direction of Burlington School Committee for the purposes of events that are not school events in order to cover, and then it lists a bunch of organizations. But it doesn't say anything about the distribution of those funds across those organizations. So I think that's up to...
So what Bob is flagging is that he does intend to make a shift from prior practice just based on utilization and need, and we're being alerted to that. The total sum isn't affected, so I'm not concerned about it. I'm not sure what you want to do with town meeting, but I think this is a straight up funding of custodial services for the organizations, period.
Comment, please.
Yes, go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Frank, we actually talked about this a lot in the subcommittee too. And I think the general feeling was that, yes, it's spent under the school committee's direction. It's up to them to divvy it up. And I think in the past at town meeting, we've seen people ask questions about specific organizations and wanted to make sure various ones were covered and so on. So I think the point of this was really just the school administration just being extra careful to make sure they're giving as much information as possible, even though it is spent under their direction.
Comment, Rod?
Did you get a clandestine haircut?
Sorry. Mike, you had a question, right?
Yes, so as I understand it, we're shifting hours from a couple organizations over to basketball. Presumably basketball exceeds their hours. I don't know when organizations exceed their hours, if they're sent a bill. I think that may be the case. My question is, are there other organizations using the gyms that also have exceeded their hours? And if so, is it fair to give it all to one organization, or should it really be spread out?
Bob, can you address the nature of the suggested change?
Yes, please, through the chair. So the reason we did focus on BYBA is strictly because they are the group that uses over their allotted hours the most. So they're allotted 62 hours per year, and they use 384 hours over that they were billed for last year and 354 hours the year before. The next group close to that would be Pop Warner, which uses about 47 to 60 hours over their allotted hours. And then we can go down to Pop Warner again, which uses about 40 hours over their allotted hours, boosters and so forth. So again, BYBA is the one that uses the most hours in the gym and gets billed the most. So having 62 hours, which is a little bit less than some of the other groups, we thought it was fair to bring that up to 82 hours and put the full 20 hours there.
Okay, I mean, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah. I think, Mike, that's a good question about just fairness. So, yeah.
So I guess since we're talking about it, can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Doug.
So Mr. Kuna, when these things like Burlington Youth Basketball, they come in, they use the gym, what's the, I mean, I know there's a contract with the custodians, and if a group has over a certain number of people, that requires a separate custodian be brought in on overtime. Is that true?
Correct. Yes.
So if we have kids using the basketball gym, we actually have to bring in another custodian, and I assume pay them a minimum of a number of hours in order to clean up the mess from the kids. I mean, I guess I've always been bothered by that, and but I don't know that I really understand how it works.
Again, through the chair, I think you explained it right on the head. So what does happen is that contractually there is a 75 number, and if there's more than 75 people in a group that attend, then contractually we would bring in another custodian. That doesn't mean we sit there with a ticker tape and count every single person that comes in. I think the number, if it's 200, it's clearly above the 75. If it's 60, then no. But what happens is that, let's use Memorial for an example. There are two custodians on the second shift, and they have two different wings of the building. So in order to then obviously cover the event happening in the gym and then clean up afterwards, that's when potentially, we would charge for somebody to be in there. But again, we don't charge for every event just because they're using the gym. The way it's kind of worded is really an honor system, meaning that if we can't cover it with the staff that's there, it would be difficult for the current staff, then we would bring somebody in. Smaller groups, let's say like Boy Scouts and things like that, we don't charge to have people in the building, even if they have a larger event. It really just depends on what space they're occupied and whether or not we have somebody there to cover that area or designated to clean a different area.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. Is there anything in the union contract about this kind of coverage?
Yes, Mr. Riggs. So there is a number of 75. Anytime there's an event over 75, then you would have one custodian on. If it gets to 150, we would have a second custodian on contractually.
Okay.
But like I
so
said, we don't. Say again?
So the numbers you were mentioning are in the union contracts?
It is in the union contract, yes.
Okay. Thanks. Anything further?
Bob, I'm trying to find in the backup. Is for the Article 30, is there a breakdown of the hours?
It is to what I submitted. Do you not have the backup that has the breakdown sheet?
I'm looking at the one we just were mailed from the town. I want to be sure the okay. So does that have to be corrected with the reallocation of the hours? I found it. It's on page 129.
Right.
I'm not sure who that question is to. Sorry. So
Bob,
I have a markup version that I'll submit to school committee if they would like to make a vote on it. Given tonight, obviously, you would decide, your stance if you wanted to vote on it as is or make an amendment to that. Again, I think if the general consensus is that, we're voting on the bottom dollar, there's 20 hours in question of the 1,055 hours that are allotted for the custodians. And then again, we would just make that allocation back to BYBA.
I think if you're asking to have those hours reallocated, then I think we need to make it very clear.
Sure.
Yeah, Bob, can you look at providing revised backup document for town meeting? If the full committee votes to move the hours? I think that would just be precise. Anything further? All right, roll call on community custodian in the amount of $47,464. Fred?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Gaia?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Susan? Thank
Yes.
you.
Can I just say thank you for the schools for supporting this program, because I know a lot of different groups benefit from it, and as a leader of one of the groups, I really do appreciate the use of the schools.
Thank you, Steve. I'll make sure to pass along the message.
Thank you.
All right, so the next thing I put on the agenda was the operating budget. I realized, I think last year we voted on all the individual budgets, but last year we didn't vote on the whole amount. I don't know whether that's either useful or necessary, but I wondered what past practice had been.
If we've approved this is Steve, if we approved every line item, haven't we in effect approved like the entire budget? We're not authorizing an additional, twice the amount of what we just voted on, right?
Correct. Okay, then
we do have certain members though that haven't agreed with every line item though. So to vote the budget, I don't know how the vote would come out, but if you didn't agree with the line item and you wanted to pare it back, or you didn't agree with the budget as a whole, I'm not sure how you would vote the entire budget as printed.
Roger, this is Frank. Phil, you probably and John know for certain. I'm fairly certain that town meeting itself has a final vote on the bottom line of the operating budget, do they not?
They do, and I think what will happen is if there are amendments during the course of the budget deliberations on the additional line items, it would change the bottom line, and then town meeting would vote the total bottom line.
Yeah, with that in mind, I think it actually makes sense for Ways and Means to vote the bottom line.
So Roger, are you adding quickly?
I anticipated this, and I asked Whitney earlier.
Good luck, Roger.
So the number that I have is, well, this is for everything. Accommodated operating is 148,317,413. So that's 148,317,413. If I did that wrong, Whitney should correct me. Anyway.
Does John Denizio have that number, or Whitney have that number as well?
John's got a thumbs up from John, so
Yeah, that's what I have as well. This is Whitney.
thank you. All right, so why don't we just go ahead and do that? I realize, Frank, what you said about, we hold some things, we go back and talk about it. Sometimes there might be changes, and then town meeting votes the sum at that point. So let me just.
I'll move the number as presented, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Thank you. All right, another roll call. Almost the last one. Brad,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Gaia,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Bill. Bill, I missed it.
Yeah, damn this thing. Yes, excuse me.
It's color coded, Phil.
What is that, Phil?
The two different colors confuse me, Frankie.
Golly, my window went away. All right. Sorry. Thank you.
Quick
Bill.
question on that, Roger.
Yeah, Mike.
Thank you. So that number 148,347,412, how does that compare? I mean, Whitney may have this too. I'm just curious how that compares to the budget from last year.
I can do any of us. Let's see. So it's in the thing that was mailed out.
Roger, this is Whitney.
Go ahead, Whitney.
So I believe it's a 4.27% increase overall.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
What was the breakdown accommodated versus the operating budget, just percentage wise?
Sorry, I missed the question. Was that for me?
I think it was for
Whitney. That handy.
Whitney or John. Just the percentage operating year over year and percentage accommodated year over year.
Okay, so for us, accommodated isn't operating, but the percent for school and town blended operating was 3.54, and accommodated were 5.58.
Thanks.
Yeah, page 21 in the budget has the 5-year budget summary. Not to minimize the question. All right, so as I recall, I was in the middle of a roll call vote. Rob, I don't know if I got your answer.
Yes.
Thank you. Steve?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Thank you very much. 12-0-0.
Sorry, Rob, I didn't realize you were in the middle.
Yep. No, that's okay. So I had listed minutes on the agenda. I realized that they got to your email box a little bit late. So if we would rather sort of comment on them online or, respond to me and Melinda with corrections, we probably won't get another chance to vote on them, but I think they will be suitable even if we don't vote on them. Anybody have an opinion about whether we should try to vote today?
I looked at what you sent out tonight. I see no reason not to approve them.
I think they could be more comprehensive, Mr. Chairman, but I see no reason not to approve them.
Okay, I mean, if you'd like them to be revised, we can arrange to have that done. But if you said there's no reason not to approve them, then let's go ahead. Is it in order to have a motion to approve both sets of both the 513 and the 5-8 minutes in a single motion?
We got to take them individually because I have to abstain from one and I can approve the others.
All right, good point. Sorry?
It's actually May 6th.
Yeah, I have to abstain for the latest one, the 2 weeks ago one.
Okay, let's do them separately because right, we have people who aren't able to vote on them. All right. So for the minutes of 5-8, can I have a motion?
5-6.
5-6, sorry.
And I'll this is Brad. I'll motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. All right, back to the top. Brad?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Kaya?
Yes.
Mike? Oh, John, sorry, John.
Yes.
Mike?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Bill?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Sonia? Nope, sorry, no Sonia. Steve?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, and then for the minutes of 5:13,
Motion to approve.
Second.
thank you. Brad?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
David?
Abstain.
Right. Frank?
Yes.
I think I missed that, Frank.
Yes.
Thank you. Yaya?
Abstain.
John?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Thank you.
You forgot me again.
Right, sorry, Rob. How did I do that?
Yes.
All right. 10:02. So let's see, what have we forgotten to do?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
for future minutes, I'm not confident enough in this that I would have said it before we separated the votes, but I believe town council at the training for the open meeting law discussed voting on minutes a little bit, and she said that what you're actually voting on is that the minutes were presented in a meeting and that there was an opportunity for comment and correction, and that even if you weren't attending that meeting, you could still vote, because what we're saying is they were presented at this meeting and there was a chance to correct them. You're not actually voting on the accuracy of them. And so anybody that's present at this meeting can vote. We might want to get cleared up, but if we continue to have to meet this way, that might be helpful.
Okay, yeah, that's an important distinction. I'll have to go look that up.
Yeah, I do. I was at that same meeting that Doug was at, and I do recall what he is saying is what she portrayed.
Okay, and we may have been doing things under slightly the wrong pretense, but bringing them up and having a chance to correct them, we have been doing. So we're lined up there. All right, I don't have anything else.
Mr. Chairman, one thing, I
Bill.
would like to retract my comment regarding the comprehensive minutes. They are indeed comprehensive. My mistake.
All right, thank you. So there is a tentative date for town meeting, but I'm pretty sure that it hasn't really settled down and the arrangements haven't been made yet. As far as I know, we have no other business until town meeting, but if something comes up, you'll all be the first to know, or maybe we'll be the second to know. Paul, do you have any knowledge of this matter that you can pass on?
I think we're getting a little bit closer to having a plan. I know that Amy and Bill attended the Board of Health last night to get them to sort of walk through a couple of different options inside and outside. I think we're really close to having something. I don't want to speak out of tune in terms of what it is, but I do think you'll be hearing something very, very soon. And we're going to hold a meeting as professionally and as safely as possible under these conditions. So we've come up with a bunch of different plans to date, and many of them we've had to go back and revisit. We have the input from the Board of Health every step of the way. So it's been uniquely challenging, I will say, and Bill and Amy are working really hard at it. And Mr. Chairman, if I could, I really would like to thank the committee for all your hard work. You folks are the unsung heroes of the town. Nobody puts in the amount of time you guys do. It's amazing. And I just want to thank you for all your efforts.
I echo the sentiments. I really appreciate it. Yes.
This is Frank. One other comment I'd like to make. I think that the package that came out, the whole warrant and the backup, is really well done. I actually am quite proud of the document that the administration and all the support people and Ways and Means and whatnot put together. So I think it's a job well done. We often get a lot of criticism about the backup isn't timely, or there isn't enough in it, or blah, blah, blah. But I actually think this is a good package, so thank you.
Yeah, I concur, Frank. It's excellent. I think I started to read through it and I found all kinds of information which Ways and Means have been a party to, and I know people ask questions about. And, the history and the tables are just very illuminating in terms of, what we're putting the money up for and what it's worth to the town. I agree. Excellent work. Great.
Oh, we'll have to read it.
On that note, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Hear, hear. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Get the escadrille.